Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the penultimate episode of our live series on finding your first customers. Thrilled to have Caitlin here today. Hi, Caitlin, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Caitlin's the CMO at Nerdapp, who are totally changing the game of IT support for pretty much everyone, and really excited to talk a little bit about Nerdapp's journey today to finding their first customers. So, Caitlin, first of all, welcome. Let's start right back at the beginning. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about Nerdapp for those that are watching, so they have
Sure.
context, when the business started and when you joined.
Sure. So Nerdapp is a managed marketplace. So we connect vetted, verified IT professionals to businesses needing tech support. We also have some cool features and cool tools that help businesses manage all their IT policies and procedures in one place. So yeah, we've been deving probably for about 3 years, and we officially launched about 2 years ago. So yeah, I came on just early days, about 2 years, and it's been quite an interesting journey since then.
Yeah, absolutely. And where are you now in terms of kind of like customer numbers, things like that?
So we have about 14,000 active customers on the platform. But going back to our early days is we've kind of pivoted quite a lot. So in the beginning, our target audience was pretty much everyone. So just to give you a bit of background on the app, our founder, Kelvin, he is a tech IT guy himself, a nerd and proud of it. And he basically he always used to help his neighbors with their computers, and they used to pay him in like curry and beer. And he was like, "There surely must be a better way to get paid for this." So that's where the idea was born. And we kind of we're going to build this app that is tech support for everyone. So kind of siloing our target audiences from, your granny to your neighbor, to your small business, to your big business. But where we're at now, and what we quite quickly realized, is that there is a gap for businesses needing tech support. So especially with COVID accelerating distributed workforces, we've found that businesses are needing the support, and people and chief technical officers can't necessarily support their remote teams and manage all their documents in one place. So that is where we're going now. And it's definitely been a lot easier once you've been able to drill down, our target audience. It's definitely been a lot easier with regards to our marketing efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. And when did you kind of have that realization in terms of the the focusing on businesses rather than just consumers? Was that a kind of something that you spotted and you saw people coming in to use the product and you're like, oh, this is interesting? Or did you actively go out and kind of find that market?
No, you're right. So we were kind of monitoring and listening to a few jobs, and realizing that a lot of these jobs are people and their businesses. So kind of just taking feedback and obviously doing a few demos, and just really understanding what the pain points were. And we just realized, we can see a gap, let's just take it. So I would just say probably listening to our customers was probably the key thing. But it was, we do still help individuals, but that's all through like organic SEO. But all of our like paid efforts go towards businesses.
And so what was, thinking back to some of those early days then when you were focusing kind of on the consumers initially, what were your sort of tactics? How did you get started in terms of finding those first few customers?
Yeah, for sure. So basically we kind of started in our business park where we are in Chiswick, and we were like, right, what is around us? And we're in a business park with hundreds of businesses. So kind of starting with those partnerships in the early days, I think helped us. So we've obviously managed to give IT support to the businesses in our business park, as well as working with with Visa, they're one of our main partners, so we enable their merchants worldwide
Wow.
exclusive IT support. So kind of those early days, and we were quite lucky with those being inbound, but kind of just nurturing those partnerships, because obviously it's quite a long cycle to close that. So I think starting with those helped us. Also, because we weren't too sure on our target audience, kind of just leveraging what we have. So I had a few friends, luckily, that happened to be influencers, and falling upon their network. So giving them discount codes. I mean, they're all editing videos, have computers, need help with their laptops. So kind of doing it from that aspect. And I think also utilizing our nerds, our technicians. So looking at a referral program for them and getting them to, shout about Nerdapp, build up upon their profiles. And over and above all of that is reviews. I think we relied quite heavily on as well. Just like pushing Trustpilot, Google reviews, getting feedback. And yeah, it's been quite organic, and I think we've listened quite a lot to our customers and kind of navigating and finding our way. Yeah.
And the Visa ones are really interesting, because that's obviously like a huge, brand and a great business to work with. How did that come about?
It was actually inbound. So they also identified this this challenge that their SMEs and merchants were dealing with. Especially they were saying that COVID kind of accelerated that for them. So being able to have a solution where their businesses can get support in one place. So I don't know if it was right timing. I don't know, but the partnership works great, and we're grateful for it. Yeah,
incredible. And did you take any kind of learnings from that experience of working with such a huge organization like that versus kind of some of the smaller businesses you've been working with already?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of propelled us to make sure all our security was in check, making sure we've got the best, operating systems running, and making sure we were like running smoothly on that regard. So it kind of was like being thrown in the deep end from the beginning, but it's definitely put us in a good position with all of our other partnerships. Like moving into now the space that we're in, strategic partnerships are a huge pillar for us. And that one-to-many approach, like we still do service individuals and a lot of like people looking for value-added services to their organization or membership base. So kind of, identifying those key people and going that approach rather than like individually trying to hit, thousands, millions of people, rather go one to many.
Yeah, totally. And what were some of the things that you've tried so far that haven't worked so well?
Well, to be honest, a big like barrier that we had in the beginning when we raised our pre-seed round of funding, we were able to put more money into paid, and just Google, like in Google's disapprovals were a little bit of a nightmare for us. Like it was like we relied quite heavily on it in the beginning, so kind of just like putting all our eggs in one basket, I think was just a bit of a scary situation. So like getting away from relying on one channel, I think was really important for us. So yeah, that was probably the main thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a common challenge, because particularly when any business really is thinking about finding that first tranche of customers, that first wave of adopters. Some of those paid channels, whether it's kind of the Meta or Google or TikTok or LinkedIn or any of these platforms, is often some of the lowest hanging fruits, right? Because they give you a chance to get in front of the people who are looking or maybe interested. But it's really a tricky one to kind of then balance out, because you become kind of addicted almost to the numbers that you can get from these platforms, and it's just a never ending kind of beast.
Well, that's true. And, for us, understanding our customers at like what phase they're in when they're looking for tech support, a lot of them are quite panicky and needing help urgently. And whether it's going to a friend looking for tech support, or your neighbor, or Googling, tech support near me, we had to make sure we were like showing up in these situations. So it's quite a tricky one.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? That it makes perfect sense that that's where you invest, right? Because
Yeah,
that's the reality of that's what everybody's instinct is, to turn to Google to find the
yeah,
answer, or to find someone who knows the answer. So it certainly like feels like an appropriate solution, but it's about balancing that out, I suppose, isn't it, with other channels. So as you say, you're not kind of at risk of over reliance on a single channel and things kind of
yeah,
throwing that off course that are completely out of your control.
yeah, absolutely, which we knew happens.
And so we talked a little bit about paid and partnerships. Are there any other kind of channels or tactics that you found success with in terms of finding customers?
I think SEO, like I wish we started sooner, to be
Mm,
honest. We have, jobs from all over the world now, and that's purely based on SEO efforts.
yeah,
So kind of translating content and matching intent for like what people are searching for. So are they looking for like a how-to guide? Are they looking for something, a quick view on YouTube, or, a
mm,
blog? What exactly are they looking for? And just making sure we getting the content out in the right space. So yeah,
yeah,
again, SEO and backlinking and whatnot, I think has helped us. And I wish we,
cool.
like I said, I wish we started it sooner. In the early days, from a B2C perspective, we definitely did a few competitions, and it was great for numbers and quick numbers and being able to remarket to those people. But like for longevity, I don't know if I would, stick to that approach. But it was all right for the beginning, and it got us some traction.
Yeah.
Um, Also like freemium,
Mm,
free support to get people using the platform
yeah.
and testing it and getting feedback really in the early days, um, was quite useful as
Yeah,
well.
and I think that's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got to think about kind of how you incentivize that feedback early on, because it's so fundamental to how you work out kind of who you're appealing to, what problems they're trying to solve, and kind of
Yeah.
getting that really rich customer insight that you can then feed back into the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And like funnily enough, our technicians kept signing up with businesses, and like we were getting confused, like, no, no, this is for businesses. And then that kind of sparked an idea, thinking, right, these are, IT professionals who a lot of them do have their own IT companies. So why would they not be able
Ah,
to tap in and grow their team? They obviously like telling us, or they thinking that we are speaking something else. So kind of just having focus groups with different
nice.
technicians, and kind of developing something that's going to enable them to grow their business.
Yeah,
And without listening to that initial feedback, or and it happened like quite a few times, so like not just like a one-off, so there was obviously a pattern. So just being able
yeah,
to recognize those patterns, and being able to move quickly. We're really lucky with our dev team. They're super fast. We are always
nice.
building, so being able to be agile, I think, has helped us a lot as well.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And you talked a little bit about content there, and sort of, I suppose, specifically from a sort of an SEO point of view. But is that something you're doing more of now, then, in terms of content creation on quite a regular basis?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely looking at building valuable content. That sounds cheesy, but just valuable content that people
Mm,
actually want to be reading, and that's going to be useful to them. So it's definitely a really important pillar for us. And
yeah,
also bringing the nerds in, and letting them tell their story. I think is really key as well. And
yeah.
how we've enabled them, and also business owners, because we are solving a problem, and we just need people to know about it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And are you focusing quite heavily on kind of the written side, or you sort of mentioned video briefly? Is that something that you're exploring as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will have to be like a two-prong approach.
Yeah,
Obviously, from a video content perspective, video is definitely performing better, which I think we know. So kind of
mm,
just, getting those testimonials, and bringing the brand to life, I think is really important, because there's nothing, too exciting about tech support. So kind of just bringing the brand to life, I think
yeah.
has been important for us as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's also another thing kind of see quite often with businesses, is trying to transition into some of those more kind of rich areas of content, stepping out of the kind of
Yeah.
usual blog to creating something, as you say, much more kind of valuable and rich in its nature.
Yeah.
How have you found that journey? Is that something that you happen to have the skill set in-house to be able to just kind of try, or if you had to kind of look to external partners to help you?
Yeah, so our team is quite small at the moment, and it's quite limited in terms of, you know, what we can be producing. So we definitely are. We have dabbled with agencies in the past. Unfortunately, like haven't had the best experiences with that, which I think every, you know, founder or small team finds, whether it's, you know, a paid agency, paid media agency, or content creation. So kind of just finding the group and finding the right people to work with, I think is important from a content perspective. And also obviously ideally having someone in-house for that would working with someone you can work very closely with who really understands your brand, because at the end of the day no one understands it more than you do. So yeah, I think we do struggle with it actually.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that a lot of businesses do, because like you say, you've to create really good content, you've really got to be in detail, haven't you? You've got to really
100%.
intrinsically kind of understand the audience, the problems, the product, how it all connects together, and be able to talk about it in interesting ways rather than just kind of producing something that anybody could. And that is a real
100%.
challenge. And I think if you look at
100%.
some of the brands that are doing that really well, typically they will have internal teams ultimately kind of owning it, but it's such a challenge to resource. I think I'm kind of really interested in this topic of kind of how startups solve that problem, because it can have such powerful effects doing that well, but getting to the place where you're able to do it well is often a bit of a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, and I echo that.
And so you mentioned quite a bit about sort of research and kind of customer listing and stuff. So it sounds like that's quite integral to sort of the way that you operate as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we take every demo call, every call that we basically do as research. We ask the right questions, we understand their pain points, and you know, we try to turn those pain points into messaging on our channels, and trying answering those questions that people are coming through on the support chats, on the demos, to kind of put their mind at ease. So yeah, that's 100% been an important pillar for us from the beginning, really.
Yeah, love that. That's great. And if you know what you know now, so you're kind of 2 years into your journey with Nerdapp, if you were to start again, knowing what you've kind of learned over the last 2 years, is there anything that you might have done differently over that time?
Good question. I think I mentioned this earlier, but like I probably would have started SEO sooner. I think we only started, because it wasn't a quick win, we were kind of like put it on the back foot. But yeah, knowing what we know now, I probably would have started that a little bit sooner, because it's so easy to be, you know, just constantly creating that content, and even just working with, you know, low-hanging fruit with partners, and you know, leveraging off other people's networks, backlinking, etc. So yeah, SEO, probably would have brought in our referral program a little bit sooner as well, because that really helped us. And then I think one last thing is maybe because we have been so agile, staying on top of our customer journey, you know, has sometimes been like, oh, flip, like we need to get on top of this. So just making sure we're on top of every touch point at every time. I think it's important to review it. So yeah, being on top of the customer journey has been important.
I think that's
We've done
a
it
really good point.
more religiously, right?
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things as well where it's not a do it once and let it gather dust on the shelf, right? It's got to be a living, breathing thing that has to evolve. Has to be continuously evolved as consumer patterns, trends, external factors, etc. Happen. So I think that's a really good point to make. And if you were to share a tip with another startup or another CMO working at a startup, you had to share a piece of advice or guidance, what do you think it might be?
I think it would be maybe two things, if I can squeeze two things in there. Maybe number one, if something's not gelling and not like you're not really finding that customer fit, don't be afraid to pivot or try, different markets. I think it's important to again, just if something's not gelling, there's probably a reason that it's not gelling. So don't be afraid to pivot if you need to, if it makes sense. And then maybe just align yourself. This is also cheesy probably, but align yourself with the right team and the right external agencies, because it's so hard. It's really, really hard. And I do think a lot of founders, get taken advantage of, who, if they like marketing, for example, is not exactly their space and they don't really know much about it. So, make sure you really know who you're working with and look at reviews and get a good feel for your agencies that you're working with if you are at that stage, or even if you're bringing someone in-house, make sure they're aligned with you and the brand and your values.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, that last one, actually, I completely agree with it. And we did I think we actually did a newsletter or something on it maybe a month or so ago, because it was one of those things that we kept kind of coming up in conversations that, particularly when you're talking about some marketing activity channels where you're spending a reasonable amount of cash to just make things happen, like ads and stuff. It's really tricky if you're not familiar with that world, how to know how to do the right due diligence and how to sign off on the right decisions. And so it's a really interesting area, I think, that
I feel like a lot of people, people just overpromise as well. Like people just need to set realistic expectations so that everyone is on the same page. Otherwise it's just, too overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. And I think actually that your point there's a brilliant one for kind of for everyone, really, in not even agency but internally, with each other, setting good expectations, because that's another thing that I've experienced from my own time of actually working in-house in startups, is that there's such a tendency to want to turn up to meetings and promise the world, and promise these huge kind of results and performances, and actually bit of honesty earlier on, I think, would go a million miles to actually having more productive conversations and really figuring out the problems.
Well, that's exactly it, is having those productive conversations and, working your way around it. I think, like you said, goes a long way.
Yeah, and that definitely seems to be the culture that you have at Nerdapp, which I think probably is testament to how well you've done so far.
Thanks, Nair.
Cool. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for all your tips for everyone. As usual, we'll be sharing this out in our newsletter later this week as well.
Cool. Bye.
All right. Have a good afternoon. Bye.